You're watching PowerNation. Today on Detroit Muscle, we're going to make our 2019 Dodge Charger sing a whole nother tune. And you're gonna like what it sounds like. Hey guys, welcome to Detroit Muscle. Today we're working on just that, a late model supercharged Hemi. I know it sounds pretty sweet. Now we just finished up installing our Pro Charger, and this little air compressor is definitely going to motivate it. Now we're wanting to, free up a little bit more horsepower, all the while setting the tone. When we took this Charger out for its maiden voyage, one thing that we did notice was it had what a lot of people call that exhaust drone. And I tell you, that is something that is not enjoyable. It kind of sounds like someone's beating on the car, pounding on your eardrums. The culprit to all that noise nonsense is right up here. If you'll notice, there aren't any mufflers, and there should be. Now what sits in the place of those is just some standard old aluminized pipe that someone has welded into place. Now the dead giveaway is how there's a dramatic difference between the diameter of these two tubings. Now what we're going to be doing is swapping out pretty much all of this exhaust system. There's nothing really wrong with it. It doesn't have any leaks, but our issue is the noise and the drone that this car has. And especially now since this Hemi's being force-fed by that supercharger, all that stuff is going to be magnified once it comes out the tailpipe. And what's cool about this next setup that we're going to be installing is it's all tunable to your liking. Got it. All right, the goal here is to separate this forward pipe from this mid pipe. And the way I'm planning to do that is using one of these. How well this is going to go, well, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to stay after it until I succeed here. These Hemis have a distinctive sound all of their own, and to that trained ear, we can tell them whenever they just pull up into the parking lot. Now with our car, it had what I'm gonna call some primitive alterations that kind of set it apart, but not in a good way. Our cure for the elements of this thing is to be using an XMOD kit that we picked up from Magnaflow. One thing I really enjoy about products from those guys is they've done their research and homework to make installation relatively a breeze. Now later on we're going to get into the goodies of that XMOD kit, but first things first, let's get this X-pipe installed. Now this kit is designed to fit the 5.7, 6.2, and 6.4 Hemis, but the only difference is, well, the 5.7 requires these smaller little neck down tubes instead of the larger ones. 5.7 has a 2.5, where the 6.2, 6.4 has a 2 3/4. Now all we have to do is slap these up here, but you gotta remember your clamps. Rookie. You don't want to cinch your clamps down all at once. You need that adjustability to it. Well, I'm going to go ahead and install these little cross braces, basically to hold things where they need to be. This helps align things as you start assembling this exhaust kit. No reason to cinch them all the way down, just kind of mock them up. Now right in this box is where all the magic happens with that XMOD system. If you'll notice, looks like you got a couple of options. Now, if you're looking for the iconic deep tone that Magnaflow offers, well, this would be the choice that you'd want to make. If you're going a bit more wild and crazy, looking for a bit more aggressive, straight tube, well, that'll do the trick. Also, pay attention to the fancy little box here. The way it's engineered, it allows you to have a place to put everything. So if you want to adjust your exhaust tone, well, you got a place to keep up with everything, which is pretty handy. Now, all we gotta do is start putting some of these tubes into place. We can hear this thing fire up. Our charger came from the factory with adaptive exhaust. What that refers to is there's a little valve that's in the exhaust system that whenever you stomp on the gas, well, it lets more music come out the tailpipe. And this kit is designed to accommodate that. Has this cool little bracket and assembly that allows you to do what it exactly did from the factory. But if you want it to be a little bit more loud, meaning it's loud all the time, well, they have something to accommodate that. You get to tune it however you want to. Now with our situation, we're going to go ahead and install this valve. Now it's time to see why we do all this hard work, you know, to show off just a little. Next, we're going to be setting the standard, but it's a little lower. So far with our late model Charger RT project, we've bolted on a supercharger to accommodate that Hemi and set the tone coming out the tailpipes with that custom stainless steel exhaust. The next thing that we want to get into is kind of setting the attitude a bit closer to the ground, all the while increasing the fun factor sitting behind the wheel. Now, I'm not saying a stock Charger out the box looks bad or anything. I'm just saying there's usually room for improvement. Now, if you'll look at the distance from the top of the tire to the quarter panel here on the rear versus the front, you can see that it's quite a bit higher back there. What I'm wanting to do is lower it all the way around about an inch or so, maybe a little more in the back to give it that racy look. Now that I've pleated my case, it's time to get these hands dirty. Before I get too carried away, I want to use a tape measure and actually see what the car is sitting at right now. That way, later, once I change the suspension, I'll know precisely how much I lowered it. The way we plan to dramatically improve the steering and handling of this Charger is using these RideTech HQ coilovers that we found at Summit Racing. It has Fox factory internal valving, Hyperco shocks, and cool anodized coating from one end to the other. Plus, they have 24 positions that you can adjust the rebound. Now, you guys saw how simple it was to get this thing out. This upgrade makes a dramatic improvement, and it really isn't all that complicated. If that front suspension impressed you because of how smoothly it went, well, this back is going to be even easier. And one thing that's really nice about this setup is that you don't have to sacrifice your ride quality for this improved handling, and oftentimes that seems to be the case. Ooh, crap. Getting this old spring out is really the trickiest part. Now we've got to install our little bushings that go in each end, or each side better yet, of your lower mount. Now that isn't all that big of a deal, but you just got to make sure that whenever you slide this into that lower control arm, you don't drop them out of there. agree. That's a little bit lower than what I was looking for up here on the front side. Back here on the back, that's pretty close. I need to do a quick measurement just to see what the differences is, because the beauty with this type of suspension is it's adjustable. All we have to do is spin those little rings at the bottom of the coils. Yeah, we're on our way though. I'm gonna grab the spring and keep my thumb on this lower ring and twist it all and keep up with each revolution. As I turn that around, as we make a complete turn, that's equal to about 1/8 of an inch. At some point, there will be too much stress on this little nut and you end up having to use a tool. That's a good forearm workout. This is what I was referring to. This little end here hooks into, let's call it the ear of the nut. And if you need to, you can put a 3/8 drive ratchet on this end to kind of work it. But no more tension than we've got. We'd probably do it by hand. We're at 9. We just need to make one more full revolution. And for those of you who are freaking out because I'm using a impact to cinch these down, I'm just barely cinching them down. I'm not really driving them home. I'll come back and torque them once we get all the suspension dialed into what I need. Well, the conclusion, we've lowered the car 3/4 of an inch here on the front and 1 inch out back. And I know that's not a dramatic amount. However, those subtle little changes can really elevate a car. Now, we've still got some fancy wheels and tires ordered that we're planning to install on them, but they're not here yet. Once we get them in and put them on, if we need to make some adjustments, we can. But I have to say right now, I like what I see.
Remember when Buick entered the muscle car movement? No? Well, you might want to stay tuned.
What would you guess is the fastest 4-seater of the muscle car era? A GTO? A Boss Mustang? Wait, it's gotta be a Hemi car, right? Nope. Would you believe the one that beat them all was, get this, a Buick? The car was the '70 GS Stage 1.
Well, at least that's what Muscle Car Review claimed back in 1984. And it raised the eyebrows and blood pressure of many folks, especially Chrysler fans. The rankings were based on a compilation of elapsed times recorded by major car mags back in the day.
Motor Trend clocked a 1338 ET at 105 miles per hour on the 1/4 mile, edging out a 68 Hemi Charger's 13.5. 0 to 60 took just 5.5 seconds. They called it an engineering tour de force without a taste of Geritol.
The Stage 1 option was a bargain at just $200. It transformed the already potent 455 into a deadly weapon. Buick added a high-lift camshaft with longer duration, and heads had a higher 10.5 to 1 compression and were machined with larger ports. Plus, the intake and exhaust valves were oversized, as well as the tailpipes.
Initial timing on the quick curve distributor was set at 10 degrees instead of 6, and a heavy-duty radiator was thrown in to handle the extra heat from the motor.
Twin hood scoops fed cool air through styrofoam sealed ports directly into the air cleaner. This was a stock GS, but Stage 1's got a Rochester Quadrajet with bigger jets.
Buick claimed the Stage 1 only added 10 horsepower, but that was just to beat the insurance rap. Total output was boosted from 350 to well over 400.
Now, horsepower is one thing, but torque is what gets you off the line faster. And this beast was a torque monster. Tried 510 foot-pounds, and it made it all at just 2,800 RPM.
The Stage 1 option also got you a positive traction rear end with 364 gears. Everything else was ordered a la carte, like a Hurst 4-speed and rally gauges. Even heavy-duty suspension wasn't included.
Buick kept the car low-key, no stripes or graphics. The only outside markings were the Stage 1 badges on the fenders. Other than that, it looked just like a stock GS.
That made the Stage 1 kind of a sleeper and was easily overlooked.
Well, back then and even today, people don't think of Buick and performance in the same breath.
Buick only managed to move about 3,000 of them, way less than other cars in the same price range.
When you think about the low production numbers, the maximum performance that you get right at the top of the heap, luxury. You don't get any better. You've got everything sewed up in one package.
Ever since the car was ranked fastest four-seater, folks have been fighting over whether that was really true. Now, there's been countless Stage 1 versus Hemi shootouts over the years with no clear-cut winner. In our book, the title is still up for grabs.
Want to know how a master got started in his craft? We've got a pretty cool story coming up next. There's a common component when it comes to cool cars that pretty much every one of them has. We've got a friend of ours that has developed special procedures and techniques that has definitely influenced the custom car industry. And here's his story.
Pulling into the parking lot every morning, I'm still really excited to get here and looking forward to the day. Getting to the shop, meet with the production manager, and we walk through and look at various parts, talk about how we're going to process some pieces. Always start in the strip room. That's where everything gets started here. You know, look at everything from a quality standpoint and look at it mostly like, would I put this on my car? And if yes, then it's going to be good to go. Try to use everything pretty much as a learning tool in here and share the knowledge that I've gained over the last 40 years. I can not always tell you what to do, but I can tell you what not to do because I already made all those mistakes. Spent about 2 hours of every day actually out there on the floor. And from there, I'm up front and talking to the sales team and look at components and talking about pricing and inventory. And then eventually I make it to the office and talk to the real boss here, which is my wife, Sherry, who has been the best partner I ever had. Early in my teen years, when your parents could sign off, you could go to work at 14. I went to work for a plating company. I got a little, taste of plating, and I was really interested in the chemistry. I'm not a trained chemist, but, and I've told you earlier, I'm not really good at spelling, but I'm really good at math. And a lot of chemistry has to do with mathematics, calculating formulas and titrations. When I started, there was no plating on aluminum. And so I was experimenting around with plating on aluminum, and that kind of basically was a chemistry mistake that led to the success of plating on aluminum. And then as time went by, I had an opportunity to develop proprietary nickel brightener for the plating industry. What I was looking for, we plate so many different configured parts, and most of the chemistry was only developed to plate like either bumpers or small parts. Well, I needed really an all-purpose brightener system that allowed me to plate all different configurations and components. And I had some help along the way from a company called Taschem and Becky Z, I called her. And in 1988 was able to develop some proprietary chemistry. And then again in 1998 was to improve on that. I had been doing black chrome for years, but I was never really totally happy with it because it was such a matte finish. And when we moved up here in the year that we were closed, it gave me some time to develop black chrome chemistry that had a reflective value to it and was durable. And that's what I was looking for. So again, through trial and error of chemistry, was able to come up with some formulations that allowed me to create the black bass that Tommy and the whole Detroit muscle scene is interested in. Through the years, nickel plating had become real popular. It has a little bit different glow, softer feel to it. Not everybody wanted the silver bling of hexavalent chrome. So I had been trying to figure out a way to put some type of top coat on nickel plating and gold plating to give it durability, where the nickel wouldn't tarnish and oxidize and it wasn't so maintenance heavy, and where the gold wouldn't literally polish off over a period of time. And I had been experimenting around with different deposits, so I kind of came to titanium because titanium had the same color characteristics as nickel plating. After some trial and error and not being able to get anodes to dissolve, titanium anodes to dissolve into the bath, kind of went to the concept that's used with gold plating, where we buy gold bricks, they're basically dissolved into a solution that allows us to liquid form. So developed a liquid form of titanium, made that bath up, and the neat thing that I wasn't expecting was not only can we put it over nickel without it really changing the color at all, we can also do it over the top of copper and gold. So we try to be the leader of the industry, but I do also share all that information with competitors. It's available to anyone. Like I told you, when I pull in here in the morning, I'm still excited. I don't think I would ever been satisfied with my job if I was just plating the same piece day in and day out. And there are a lot of challenges in job shop plating. It's the challenge that keeps me going, but it's also the smile I put on everybody's faces, not only mine, but the customers and even my employees, to be able to have pride in that finished product, and being able to deliver those type of smiles is priceless.